daylight savings time. For example, Turkey is no longer using daylight savings time. Currently, there's 7 hours, but when we fall back sometime in the next month, Turkey is not going to change anything, so it's going to be 8 hours. I heard somewhere that Kentucky actually is going to end the daylight savings time soon. Is that true? Let me see.
I think it goes into effect next year.
Next year,
And
Kentucky daylight. Let's look at 24. Apparently, some people say states don't have the authority to choose it. Anyway. So exposure like that is not technically considered economic exposure, because if nothing changes on the nature of the BioNTech stock, their expected sales are the same, everything is same. The only reason it changes is because of the exchange rate, and exchange rate has changed quite a bit. Just looking at it the last month, it was about 108. Now it's about 105. That's almost 3% change. So if you were a holder of the BioNTech stock, the stock would have went down by 3% naturally because of transaction exposure, foreign currency exposure. Any other changes, in a sense, is the economic exposure. Something happens to nature of BioNTech, sales, that's different. But even that, we don't consider foreign currency exposure. Now, what other kinds of things that are not directly related to transactions or assets or liabilities, whether they're denominated in US dollars or not, can create economic exposure? Can you think of anything? Suppose you are a drug manufacturer, okay? But you only do sales in the United States. And let's assume all your expenses are also in US dollars, so you have no direct transaction exposure. But I'm going to argue that you'll still be affected by what happens to dollar-euro. What's the mechanism, do you think? And not everybody is affected to the same degree. What do you think would be the mechanism? Let's do a simple example. BioNTech is a German company. Do you guys know what the main business of BioNTech is? What are they making their money off?
Vaccines?
Huh?
Vaccine?
Vaccine. What kind of vaccine?
COVID vaccine.
COVID vaccine. In fact, if you look at their, let me see. Let's look at their financials. Quarterly, I'm gonna look at income statement. Over the last 4 quarters, they had a total revenue of 9.1 billion in euros, okay? And their net income was, alright. It's not clearly listed here, but it's about $4.3 billion. And most of those are coming from vaccine sales. Do you know a company that is in direct competition with BioNTech?
Pfizer?
No, Pfizer actually is in alliance with BioNTech. The vaccine is known as the Pfizer vaccine. BioNTech makes it, Pfizer distributes
Vaccines
it.
or drugs? Because we
Since
drugs
BioNTech is doing pretty much just
from the
vaccines.
Bayer.
Huh?
Bayer in Germany.
No, we're talking about an American company.
Oh.
That's in direct competition with BioNTech. You guys should know, you've been through COVID. What is the other company that sells most of the other vaccines?
Moderna?
It's Moderna. In fact, Moderna is, they are using exactly the same technology, mRNA technology. The name of Moderna actually comes from mRNA. If you look at their stock ticker, it's mRNA, okay? And they're direct competitors in COVID. Most of Moderna's sales are in the United States. I mean, they do some sales outside, but not as much. But BioNTech, being a German company, they actually are pretty big in Europe, and they were smart enough to get an alliance with Pfizer for distribution here, so they're also big here. So when euro depreciates, what happens to BioNTech versus Moderna? Presumably, most of the inputs of BioNTech is in euro terms. You know, they have to pay their workers, they have to get their supplies, but they do all of that in Europe, right? Moderna does that in US. So when euro goes down in value, what happens to BioNTech? Do they like it or not? Let's first get that in.
Probably not.
Probably not, because they do a lot of their sales to the United States, which pays them in dollars. And in euro terms, that number goes down when euro goes down in value. Actually, I'm sorry, it goes up. Right. When euro goes down in value, what happens to dollar?
Goes up.
Goes up. So if you're selling your, I think now that U.S. government doesn't pay for them, one BioNTech vaccine is $100, I think. That $100 is now worth a lot more in euros compared to a month ago, right? So what is one thing BioNTech can do to compete with Moderna?
Lower the price.
They can lower the price if they choose to do so, right? And maybe they do. I don't know if they do or not. So does Moderna like the fact that euro is going down in value? No. In fact, they're kind of screwed from both sides. If they're selling vaccines in Europe and they make some sales, those sales are not worth as much in US dollars, because they receive euros and they convert them to dollars. And B, their competitor is more competitive now. So, just for the sake of simplicity, let's assume that Moderna did not have any foreign sales. They would still be affected, and they produce everything in the U.S. anyway, and their vaccine production is in the U.S. as well. I mean, they don't do it themselves. They hire people to produce vaccines. A lot of the pharmaceuticals, they're in a kind of vertical integration. But they're still affected by what happens to Europe. So let me put down, let me see. Let me put a chart of BioNTech for the last 3 months or so. And let me add for comparison mRNA. What do you see looking at the chart the last 3 months?